himself. I just think for me, at the end of the day, you're not gonna get your value for money from Bukhani. So I would just say cut your losses. I couldn't care that. Like respectfully, we need to then listen. If you're a businessman, you also need to realize in your head when it's time to cut your losses. Yeah, with
Yeah, but we're
Carney,
doing that with every fucking
Benjamin
player.
Chilwell. Well, listen. I wonder why that is. Maybe it's time for you guys to sit down. You know what I mean? Let's get a book, guys. Let's look at why things are going wrong, and then maybe we'll start making the right decisions. Then, shall we?
Well, I don't trust them to make the right decisions. We're doing that with
And
every
that's
fucking player. We're doing that.
and that's
We're doing
where
that with
again,
Saturday as well.
Scott. That's where again it comes back to the ownership being incompetent themselves and not realizing they guys they have got are shit. That's where this comes down to again. Where it comes back to again, you know what I mean? We keep on doing the same cycle that we did last season where we were talking about these directors, like, oh, these guys are so trash. Why are they still here? You know what I mean? And then it just comes back again to the guys that are above.
I hate to say this, and I'm only saying it because this might be something that people who haven't heard me say it need to hear. I think when it comes from the business standpoint of this whole situation and the whole project situation of this, right? It's one of those things that right now for us in front of us, because we don't know the details, because we're seeing what's happening in the now, that the owners probably just want to see, okay, I don't know what's going on because I don't know football. You guys are the ones I hired. I'm going to assume that this is the right move, although it seems like the fans or the reaction and consensus is bad. And we'll assess this in the summer and see if you made the right move. It's like, listen, sometimes when, and maybe some of you have gone through this, I personally haven't, but I know people do. Sometimes you don't get fired immediately. Sometimes you get fired at your end of the year assessment. When you see, okay, this is everything you've done wrong. I don't think you're qualified for this position anymore. I'm sorry, we're going to have to ask you to resign. It could be one of those situations that the ownership are waiting to see, okay, you guys said you had a project. You said you had a plan. You said it was going to take you 2 years. You said it was going to take you 4 windows. Let's see how this plays out. We will assess the situation at the end of the summer, how we assess Poch. The directors are going to do the same thing. And if it doesn't work out, and if it looks bad, I'm sorry, we're going back out on the market. George Mendez or whoever, you guys know people, recommend me some directors I can get, some people that can fill in this position, or Sam Jewell, step down from your position, take this position, or, you know, take this position with you as well. And maybe they're going to assess it. Because right now we can say they need to get sacked, all this and that. Who knows? Maybe this whole decision to do all this works out. I don't know.
But
that's just me just feeding a hypothetical into the air.
What I have the issue with that, because I know what you I know what you're saying, right? In the VR reviews, etc. I get what you're saying. The problem is football cannot work this way. You can't do these end of year reviews in football because particularly when you're at the top level, things move fast. Particularly when there's either a deteriorating situation or a situation that you may need to take advantage of. Right? You can't move slow. I don't like to. I think this comparison is not gonna necessarily fit 1-to-1, but like I like to think of football, particularly when you're at particular top level. It's almost like a government, bro. Right? Yes, I mean, you're gonna have long-term long-term objectives. But also when you're brought in, there's some short-term. You're gonna have some short-term stuff that you need to get right straight away, right? Because if you and I remember this is stuff I've spoken about before. If the short-term is not fixed, how can we talk about the long-term, right? The problem we are having at Chelsea is that we've become too fixated. At least these guys, in my personal opinion, have become way too fixated on the long-term approach, yeah, and not realizing in order for us to get there, there is going to be a necessity for us to get some of the short-term correct. That's where I've come from. That's where I'm coming from more than anything else. And that's
I agree
on the full pitch and everything like that.
That is one way to look at it, but there's always the other notion, right? Which is like, okay, results in football come gradually, and then they also flip over as well. Like, who's to say from this point forward we start to pick up form again and then we're comfortably back in the top 4 position? It's again like one of those things that it's easy to be reactionary in these scenarios, but from the ownership point of view, they were very patient with Potter. They were very patient with Pochettino. I don't see any different scenario when it comes to the owners or the sporting directors. They're going to be patient. They're going to see it out. And if it doesn't work out, well, that's 2 years wasted under the directors. And we're just going to have to deal with it, unfortunately.
Where I disagree with you on the firing thing, Marshall, because I kind of understand that. The issue is they should have been fired after that summer window. Like, how do you fail bringing a striker, and how do you fail addressing key areas of the squad? How do you fail in terms of the signings that you made? Like, they should have been sacked in the summer. Like, the fact they're still here is an indictment of how bad we are in the moment in terms of, like, on a recruitment basis from, like, just what we're doing. Like, I'm tired of these guys, man. I'm tired of these guys. Go and get me someone that actually knows what the fuck they're doing.
I don't disagree, right? I just want to get that out there. I don't disagree. There's a lot to criticize with the directors and all that. I do not disagree whatsoever. However, we're looking at it, once again, I'm saying, from the now. If we remove the last 6 games, let's say we had this discussion prior to the Everton match, then the discussion is totally different, because before we were saying how, we were having discussions how Jackson is potentially one of the best overall strikers in the league. We're having discussions how, the recruitment has been looking pretty good so far, so on and so forth. We had really good depth. So you say in the summer, and I agree to an extent too, because the Pochettino era was really bad. Things looked like there was no plan. The summer looked a little bleak in terms of, like, we didn't get Osimhen. We took forever to get a few deals done. The whole Duran saga. There's a lot of drama. The whole Gallagher situation. Had they fired the directors at that time, who's to say we wouldn't have gone into that good, run of form that we went into? And who's to say if we would have even been in that whole discussion of, title race, because we were in top 4. Like, in the beginning of the season, we looked good.
Marshall, how is it different 5 games ago? Because we still signed Dewsbury Hall, who... You're not telling me that after 5 games winless, we've decided, now we're going to sell Dewsbury Hall. It wasn't because these 5 games, he didn't even contribute.
It's not that. Like, there were questions to be had there. But
and they still signed Ben Chilwell to that contract. There's so many things that, even overlooking the results, many mistakes.
I don't disagree with that. Like, 100%. I agree with you on that. Like, there were still questions to be had. But what I'm just trying to get at is that, we weren't having this discussion of firing the directors before these bad run of form. Before the bad run of form, we were questioning them and what they were doing, but overall, the consensus looked like we were generally heading in a positive direction. And that we were kind of happy that they didn't get sacked, because then we don't get Maresca. We don't go into the good type of change of form. We don't start heading in the right direction. Right now, it looks bad, obviously, but there's just context to it, in my opinion.
The thing is, I don't think anybody ever approved the directors. It was just like when we had the good results, people just didn't care. They could care less about it. Yeah. But now, when we clearly see like the losses and the fact that a lot of it comes down to the squad building that did not happen in the summer. The spotlight gets put back on it because the results aren't there to cover over it. I mean, that happens with everybody, to be honest.
Right. And Marshall, by the way, every point that you've made there in terms of what they did, like the thing with Jackson, even when Jackson was performing well, we were still asking for another striker.
Yeah, that's true.
We still said we needed another striker.
A backup. Yeah.
The squad depth, I've been complaining about the squad depth since Newcastle. Since we got knocked out by Newcastle, I've been crying about the squad depth. The defense has been shit all season. Yeah, and it's still shit. Even though the starters have improved, the depth sucks. The fact that we've got an 18-year-old as our 3rd best centre-back this season is embarrassing. Who's a right-back, by the way. He's not even a centre-back. He's a right-back playing centre-back, and he's our 3rd best centre-back this season. Like, it reeks. And, like, this is stuff we've been... Like, I mentioned in the summer. It's just... And not even just me. This is stuff that got mentioned earlier on this season. This is stuff that got mentioned before the January window. And this is stuff that is getting mentioned now, technically 17 days into the January transfer window. This is not new. This stuff has been happening. It's highlighted, like it's like RSM said, it's highlighted now way more because we are on this losing streak. But this stuff has been there. It's just been because Jackson was scoring, the striker thing wasn't focused on as much. Still needed one, it wasn't focused on as much. Because Sancho and Neto were doing bits, no one was talking about how we needed a goal-scoring left winger. But we do. Because everyone in midfield was performing, No one was talking about the fact that, we probably need some midfield depth because KDH isn't playing and he sucks anyway, and Caicedo and Enzo are running themselves into the ground. No one was talking about the fact that our centre-back options suck.
Yeah, there was a lot of covering of the cracks, is what you're implying, which is very true.
I think for me, it's usually through losses, right, where you're able to see what goes right and what goes wrong.
The deficiencies, yeah.
Right. So it's better. I think when you're winning, it allows you to hide those weaknesses. But it's still. But a lot of us were still speaking of. Obviously, I think KDH was mentioned quite a few times about how poor he's been when he's played for us. He was talking about Nkuku in the 9 and how it wasn't working out when he was playing for us. If you remember. I know you've been a major critic of him in the number 9 position, if I'm not mistaken, Marshall. Is that correct?
You're not.
Yeah, thank you very much. Just wanted to remind myself of that one. Who also? Disasi. Everyone just crashes on him on a weekly basis. Bad issue on the Conference League. We were not happy with at all. Sanchez has always been Sanchez. Right. So there's been a large majority of these guys that we've spoken about on a consistent basis. Even Jackson. There were games where he played really poor that we spoke about, but I remember the other guys were the guys were the first tie.
Woes too. Forest, he wasn't that great beginning of the season either.
Wolves, he wasn't that great. Nottingham Forest, he wasn't that great. Even some of the other fixtures afterwards, where he wasn't really produced. He was producing, but then what's the word that I'm looking for? He had the. He was having the GA, but not the. He was having the GA, but not the performance. Does that make sense?
Okay, yeah, the results were there, but not the performance. Yeah,
exactly right.
Yeah, so, and I get it. Like, I still hold that I'm gonna be patient in terms of being overly critical on the directors, just because I do want to see it out. I want to see this whole season out because you never know. This is football, right? Like. We literally just saw it in today's match, an example of football just footballing, right? I thought United were going to lose, just straight up.
And then all of a sudden, first half, let's be honest.
Yeah. Southampton were dominating United. And all of a sudden, Ahmad FC shows up and the guy scores a hat trick in the last 10 minutes of the match. And all of a sudden, we're going to look over it's papering over the flaws.
The cracks.
The cracks. Maybe things turn around. Maybe things get worse. Maybe we crash out. Maybe we drop down to 10th again. I don't know. I don't want to even manifest that. But I'm just saying, I do want to see it out. And I do want to assess it again at the end of the season. And then I'll make
at this point, having a conversation about sacking the sporting directors isn't even going to be... there's a point in having it, right? But at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter because it's not happening until the summer, bro. It is what it is. We're midway through the January window. These brothers are going nowhere.
No, 100%.
We have to have the conversation now though, because if we sack them in the summer, then they have to start planning from July. Then whoever comes in as the new sporting director starts planning from July. We have no plans going into the summer.
No, it'd have to be before them. That's what I'm saying. Right now, they have to finish the window. That's what I'm saying. We can cry about them not wanting to be here, but they're gonna see this window through. It is what it is. That's what I'm.
No, they're gonna see this window through, but they need to be sacked before the summer.
Hey, and that's saying you can have that conversation. But I'm just saying, anybody who realistically thinks that they're not gonna we sack them right now, get new people in, and get all this, it's not happening.
No.
Oh no, of course not.
That's 100% correct.
Yeah.
I just think from obviously a future perspective, right? I think that's what we need to be thinking about, right? They should not be here next summer. Does that make sense? I think that's the approach that we should really be having.
And
these guys should not be here next summer. I'm not saying sack them now, sack them in January, February, but by next summer, we should be on our way with these guys and bringing in 2 new guys that can do that job.
Again, though, hold on.
Or just demote them to scouts, because they're not that bad at getting scouting youth. They just can't be trusted with making the decision to actually pull the trigger. They can't.
I'll be honest. I'm so sick of them. I'm so sick of them. I just want them at my club.
But let me ask you this,
you can be sick of them, but it doesn't deny the fact that in terms of actually scouting young talent, they have an eye for it. They just can't be trusted to pull the trigger. They need some they should be demoted. That's it. They should be demoted to just scouting youth. That's it.
They're not even our best youth scout though. Our best youth scout is Shields.
Shields is more of like a connection guy.
No,
He's not
I'm
scouting
not.
them, he
I'm not
knows them.
counting Joe Shields as a youth when he's linked with or connected with every Man City graduate.
Well, that's my point. Like he's a connections guy. He's not necessarily.
Oh, we're
he's not
linked to
he's a
Delap
connections guy.
because of Joe Shields. We're linked to Palmer, Joe Shields, Lavia, Joe Shields, Tosin, Joe Shields. Milo Gittins was a former City graduate. Joe Shields. Fuck off. He's not doing jack shit with scouting.
Well, that's what I'm saying. He's just a connections guy.
We're criticizing these directors for only going to France for Lawrence Stewart and only checking the French league and not going back to Monaco. Joe Shields is doing the exact same thing, just with Man City's academy.
But let me ask Ahmed something, because Ahmed brought up the whole. As of right now, Ahmed is saying he would sack him in the summer. Ahmed, let me ask you this. Before the summer. Let me ask you this, Ahmed. If we as Chelsea get the results we're supposed to, right? If we, get the victory over Everton, but some people say we're going to get the draw, so I'll give you that. Let's say we still draw against Everton. We win and we hold out the victory against Fulham. We end up actually playing like the way we're supposed to against Ipswich, we get a victory, right? Bournemouth, we hold out, we get the result, and we get a victory on that as well. What was the other game too? Crystal Palace, we hold out, we get a victory. Are you still holding that opinion that in the summer these guys got to go?
Yes, because again, the issues still remain, Marshall. That's the problem. The problem is, it's not necessarily for me the issue with results. It's a fundamental issue in regards to recruitment, right? And then also the guys that they're bringing in to then sell on it's also not working, right? So it's their actual job that is the problem right now. Yes, they may have brought in one or two good players. We can give them their credit, that is true there. But the other stuff that's around it and surrounding it is the big problem right now, Marshall. Does that make sense? It's the overall job. It's the overall job. We can't just look at who they're bringing in that's working. You have to look. A sporting director's job is more than just one thing. It's a collective situation, bro.
I understand that. And again, I as of right now, like I said, I am going to hold out to the summer to make my decision on this. And I understand where people are coming from about doing it now because you need to give the other directors more time to build a plan and be ready for the next summer. Where I stand with it right now is that I feel like we're very, very focused on the negatives in the situation, where I do want to bring in some of the positives in it as well. Prior to those games that I just mentioned, Maresca looked like a home run, right? So we gotta keep it consistent. That we need to give Maresca time to see if he is gonna be that home run we thought he was. We do like the system. The football is there, but the clinicality isn't there, which we weren't seeing. We did like the move for Jadon Sancho. It was a steal for 20 million to buy that player. Neto, we like that move as well. We know Neto's a talented player. Madueke, I don't know where you guys stand on him overall, but I think there is a player there. I think most of us can agree there's a player there that's still developing, and he's been improving season in, season out. Cole Palmer, great signing. We all understand that Nicholas Jackson has the potential to be a really good striker. We just want another striker to give him a rest as well. Guiu for 5 million euros, not a bad signing in my opinion. I think you guys can agree. I would say Gusto
before this season. I would say Gusto
before this season's not a bad shout. Enzo's turning it around. Caicedo's turning it around. I guess who else do we want to turn to? Lavia turned out to be a good signing as well. It just injury prone, unfortunately, but he looks like a really good player. And I think that's it, right? Like about 10 pros in that one. Like there have been some good parts to the signing.
But that's why I told you, like, just demote them, bro. Like they can't be trusted with making those higher level decisions of management. No, like Ahmed is saying, they literally they need to be demoted to just have the one thing they're good at, and that's it. Because everything else, they're disastrous at, bro. Disastrous. Like, and the thing is, like, people are just like, let them leave the club. You realize that like people are gonna say, hey, these guys are really good at scouting. Why don't we bring them in as scouts? And now we're in the mud. We lost the scouting department. They're going to bring their knowledge and everything else to somebody else. It's not like the targets that they had in mind just evaporated. They're going to keep that in mind. They're going to start bringing those targets to another club. I'd rather just demote them, bro.
But the problem is, though, are they going to accept being demoted? That's something that we're not thinking about either, right?
Well, that's why you make the...
Because you're taking them from being sporting directors to being scouts. That, yes, you're demoting them, but some people are going to be like, no, I was a sporting director. I still believe I should be that. And then they could also be like, listen, you know what? I want to leave the club too. I'm just talking about that from like a job perspective. Sometimes, bro, some people do not take the emotions lightly and are unlikely to leave a company. That's like a general thing. Let alone a football thing.
But the other, and I meant to add this onto it, and it kind of goes to what RSM is saying. Like, who's to say by getting rid of them, they don't go and improve another club? That's one aspect, and it could be a competitor for as much as we know. But the other aspect of it too is that, and it could be a competitor. I'm just saying, like, look at how Vel went to.
Let me
real quick. Let me just land, because there's one point that I want to land on this, right? You know how Vel went to United, Scott. You know, they can go to a competitor, and who knows, maybe they improve because that competitor has a different approach than our owners. And this is where I want to come back to the owners. Who's to say that the next hiree for the owners isn't actually worse than what we have now?
The only way it can be worse is if they get someone like from a lower club with less experience. It's hard to do.
We kind of did that because we went for Monaco and Brighton, right?
This is what Arsenal fans do with Arteta. What happens if the next manager is worse than Arteta? Well, also the next person could be better. We're not doing this. We're sounding very much like Arsenal fans with Arteta.
I mean, I wouldn't even go as far as saying Arsenal fans, bro. That's what people were saying about Poch. Like, you don't even have to go to Arsenal, bro. People were saying the same thing about Poch.
And we said, oh, we don't know who
what magical teams are these guys going to once they get sacked that they're going to improve?
That's a good point.
But I'm saying, like, as sporting directors, I agree. But if they get sacked and another team hires them to be scouts or lead their scouting department or whatever, they're actually decent at that. That's my whole point. That's what they're actually good at.
If they go back to Brighton or go to Fulham or something, yeah, but like they're not going.
For example, I'll put you right now, a big thing. Right now, United are starting the same thing. They got this kid from Paraguay who's really young, and that's what I'm saying. Like, there are a ton of teams that are starting to shift their focus.
Mm-hmm.
We need to build bigger squads because people are becoming more injury prone. The only way to build bigger squads and still retain talent is to buy these kids young. So United's about to go through that rebuild, bro. I'm telling you, they're going to be snatched up. They're not going to go to a Fulham because they've already had too many hits here at Chelsea. They've shown when they got money and they got access, they're going to be snatched up by another.
But I'll be honest though. But can we be honest about this? Yeah, and I'm gonna be a little bit honest here. The reality is, yeah, you're gonna sometimes in football you lose good talent, right? In terms of scouting, whatever it may be. But it's about you bringing in better talent. That's what it comes down to. You just gotta make sure the next point director you bring in is the right one and it's a hit. That's what it is. Literally, you guys we can use an example right now of a manager that's basically like that from our own club perspective. They made the wrong decision in the signing Poch, but then they brought in Maresca, and for all intensive purposes, Maresca is a hit. Yes, we can criticize some of his in-game what's it called? Substitutions, right? But in general, he is a hit in terms of the way he plays, how we play, and how we look on the field. So you can make a mistake, but then you've shown that you can improve on that mistake. That's what I'm saying, Marshall. Like, we can do that too for the sporting director department. I get your point, yeah, of talking about the attackers they've done well on, which I also agree with. But at the same time, we can then just look at the other side of it. You know, on the other side of the field, Cassidy, what's it called? Yeah, Sanchez, Jorgensen. You know what I mean? Disasi, Tosin, etc. Right? So we can. I feel like for me, there's clearly like a balance in, like, it feels like for me they definitely can identify attacking and somewhat midfield talent, right? But when it comes to some other departments, it's not working out for us here at the end of the day. And I feel like Chelsea right now, we are a big club, but we understand that yes, we may have been out of some of the stuff for the last 2 to 3 years, but we need to also be making sure we've got guys there that are the best of the best, not guys that are improving on the job. But
here's the thing: the one thing I will give RSM is, like, okay, if you think of Liverpool's setup, if they get rid of their guy who's currently sporting director, because Michael Edwards is above all of that, right? Overseeing, right? So if they get rid of their current guy because they haven't signed jack shit, you're telling me Liverpool, who is pretty stingy with their budget, but good at, like, with Michael Edwards choosing who they need to get. Imagine them paying 40 million for Duran, getting that deal done, or with Sam Amrodion, right? Like, if these guys were just like the quote unquote, like, being under the tutelage of Michael Edwards, and these guys were scouting in Liverpool's hands, hell yeah, I would be scared. If you're saying like that's the thing where it's like, I think Scott, I know you hate them, but you gotta, because I'm sorry, we some of these people, Andre Santos, who are raving, ranting, saying he's gonna be a world beater, is what? Chosen by them, no? Right? He is chosen by them. Right?
And this is my thing.
As
like
the world beater is chosen by them. We've handled him the wrong way. That's on them as well. But they have chosen him. Santos was chosen by him. They convinced Esteval in front of Real Madrid and Barcelona and every other side.
That's
like
true,
a Brazilian
actually.
talent
That's a
rated
very good
as high as him, which is basically the next Neymar, higher than Vini.
And remember, everybody's asking, what are they telling these players that they keep coming to us? Like, what is the project that they're selling?
Like I'm saying, this guy, think about it. A Brazilian player who's rated as highly as he is in Brazil, with the talent that he has in Brazil, is choosing an English side.
I don't know if this
they
is
would
a
automatically
W.
go to Spain.
I don't know if this is a W, just because I'm just saying it's pure ignorance. But based on when I last checked, now we're looking at us passing up as Endrick as a potential, like, wow, we dodged a bullet on that. And that was their decision to pass up on Endrick, if you guys remember as well.
Yeah.
Because of the price tag. You know,
and this is nothing that I need to say. Like, maybe some of you don't know, but there's this thing called a non-compete. Do you know what a non-compete is?
Yes.
A non-compete is, see, you understand. So a non-compete is when you sign for a place, they literally say, when you leave us, you are not allowed to go to work for a direct
like
rival.
Leave, in England, it's like gardening leave.
Yeah. So you're not allowed to go to work for a direct rival for X amount of time. And you know what companies do that? Companies like Google, right? Companies like Meta. Why? Because they do not want their talent leaving and going immediately to a direct rival and taking all that experience and taking all of the things that they had directly in their mind to a direct competitor. Why? Because it's not a good idea to just let that go. That's what I'm saying. As much as you can hate them, I would rather just demote them. Because I agree. I think a new sporting director could take us up levels. I agree. We need somebody to actually be a sporting director who understands offense, defense, planning for the present and for the future. We need that desperately. That's what we need. We already have the youth part done. Stop it. We need the other part. Somebody who has the wisdom and the knowledge to be able to do that. I 100% agree with that. However, letting them go is a thing where we're looking so short term that we hate them right now. That long term, when you look at Liverpool that's about to go into rebuild, you look at Man United that is in a rebuild, do I potentially want these people with their scouting knowledge and their scouting access and their network going somewhere else? There's also going to have a big club that's going to give them money. I'm not talking to Fulham or Brighton where they're working with pennies, where they have the money to build a real scouting department and actually get these signings across the door. I don't know if I want that. I'm gonna be honest with you. I do not know if I'd want that.
Because we've never had this reach in South America until then, by the way.
No, bro, we're making it in Africa too. Like I'm telling you, bro.
But I'm saying specifically in South America with Anselmino and everything we're getting. We've never had this reach ever in our history. If people are telling me we used to get Lucas Piazon, trust me, I used to, like I said, Brazilian league. He was not that rated that highly as a talent ever. He just joined Chelsea, so we just hyped him up because he's a Brazilian talent coming from him. You were saying left-footed Kaká. I was laughing my ass off at that.
And some people in the chat are actually, this is not actually a bad shout. Like, what if in the summer one of them go and not both of them? You know, and kind of see like, okay, let's keep some semblance of the plan in here and see how it works with another cog instead of this current one in terms of planning. Like, I know some of us don't like the idea of even having two sporting directors. I kind of am in agreement with that. I think there's too many cooks in the kitchen. But I think also, I think a lot of the hesitancy with me comes from the fact that I just don't trust our owners to identify proper like a good option, a good sporting director.
Save themselves.
You wanted Vivell at one point, and then all of a sudden you didn't want Vivell. You know, like there's a lot of if, ands, and maybes, and I'm at the point where like I'm frustrated, but let's see how it plays out. I go back to this. Let's see how it plays out. Maybe it works out. Maybe it doesn't, and then we'll play from there. Like, you got to play the long game when it comes to this. I'll be honest, they need to sack whoever is in charge of these briefings because holy do they make themselves look stupid. And I think with this one in general, with the whole PR, they make themselves look so arrogant and full of themselves. No, we think we made the right decision the whole time. You guys don't know what you're talking about. You guys look stupid recalling Chalobah. I'll be so honest with you. I think it's the right move, sure, because we save money. I don't think he ever should have been banished from the club. I think he should have deserved play time. Based on how he played last season when he came back, sure, you give him more play time. You see if he keeps it up. If he starts to dip in form, then you rotate him out. and you start proposing to sell him how you're doing with Disasi right now. But I don't think he should have been treated the way he's been treated. I think it's the right move to bring him back because it's the right move to correct your mistake, which they don't want to admit. So I think this is another strike on the sporting directors, in my opinion. Scott, I'm sure you obviously agree, but I would like to hear what you think, brother.
It's fucking embarrassing. These
bro.
these briefings are a joke. So like I said earlier, they're insulting our intelligence. Like just say what it is. Is like we're bringing him back because it's injuries. And that's it. We keep it stepping. That's the only reason he's back. We know he'll be sold in the summer, or attempted to, and that's all it is. Don't tell me he's an important part of this squad. Maresca sees him as a key player. They were getting in touch with him to bring him back. Fuck off, man. Fuck all that nonsense. Like, shut up, man.
No,
absolute
I agree.
joke. Like, the way he
Oliver?
got treated was a joke in the first place. Now this nonsense, they're trying to like walk back on what they did. Like, fuck off. Absolute
Oliver,
nonsense.
How do you feel about this scenario as well?
Pretty much the same. I mean, I don't rate Chalobah as highly, but it is embarrassing nonetheless. And this whole thing about, you know, it wasn't a mistake. It just goes in the face of everything we see. Like, even look at the reports of, like, we're now trying to sell Disasi. Well, in that tweet before, they were trying to justify it. Oh, it was fine for him to go on loan because we have Disasi. Now we're trying to sell him. So how does this now make sense? How is it now not a mistake? Like, as Scott says, it just insults our intelligence, and it's arrogant. And we can't even just look at the Disasi as well. It's the fact that, you know, you try to build a squad with an injury prone and coming off an ACL Wesley Fofana as a starter. I always thought that was risky, and now he's out for the rest of the season. So once again, just poor from every single angle you look at it from.
Mm-hmm. Does anyone maybe defend the fact that it's a decision that was kind of forced to be made at this point?
Yeah, I would, and you guys know I crashed out on them earlier this stream, so I'm not on some defense league with them. But it kind of makes sense if you're talking about the right side in specific. They had Disasi, they had Tosin. Even if they think Fofana's injury prone, they thought they had these two players, right? One guy was supposed to be a free guy whose leadership role, who's played through the Man City Academy, so he knows how to play with the ball and all that stuff, make passes. He looks tall. He's on a free, right? So they're thinking, okay, he can add something similar to Chalobah in that sense, in terms of leadership. But he's Man City Academy, so he might get. And then Disasi, they had a bit more faith in. So I get they had to call Chalobah back because Fofana is saying he's not out for the season, but he's out for the season. And we learned that Tosin's not doing that great and Disasi's dog shit. And even to them, they think he's dog shit. That's what they're selling him. So they're like, hey, you are an important person to our squad because why wouldn't you be? Because who else is going to play the right side? You have a Josh Achupong who's doing well, but still very young, and we need you. And you're going to be important because you're going to be playing week in, week out because Fofana is injured and Tosin can't cover white spaces, and we want to sell Disasi. So them wording it that way, they're not wrong. He is important now. Like as Arson was saying, if you're better than Tosin, you're going to start. So he is important. That's the thing, right?
But you have to question the decision making though. You know, like, did they not know before they signed Tosin that he can't cover wide spaces? Did they not know before they signed Disasi that he wouldn't fit this system?
But I don't think so. Here's the thing, right? Well, first we had a lot of questions because in terms of we thought Gusto could play in the back three at the right side, or if James was a bit fit, or Fofana could play on the right side, and we thought I think they were thinking Tosin would be the center backup, right, of the back three for them. Tall, who could intercept, decent aerially, and so on and so forth. That's what I think. With Disasi, yeah, I agree with you. He's not good at covering wide spaces, but I'm also putting that on Maresca. Maresca is also the idiot putting him at right back, more than center back, or on the right side instead of the middle, right? Like he's also the guy who's making these mistakes.
I think
Disasi there.
I think to an extent too, one notion to add, which we've seen now in the previous show when in regards to like the João Felix transfer, right? We saw that I think to an extent, and this is another negative on the directors, I think they were over reliant on Maresca trying to improve all of the players, kind of how like they were reliant on Pochettino to develop a whole squad of youngsters. I think they were oblivious to the fact that not all players can be improved upon. And Maresca is trying to make it obvious, like, listen, bro, give it up on Nkunku or give it up on Disasi. Like, I can't make this player better than what he is right now. Give it up on.
But how are you trying to improve Disasi? Like, what's the mindset behind that?
Here's the thing. They were thinking probably they're not playing the heavy metal ball that Poch does. So he's not going to be. They're not going to be as high of a line or going to be as ping pongish. Because if we're going to have more control, we can handle a more slow-paced center back who can be good aerially and blah blah blah. Right? Because you've had that in other squads. Like Harry Maguire in a back three right now looks way better than he did before. And at times he's played in the middle, and at times he's played as the right side.
The problem, I think fundamentally, like when you look at the guys that they mentioned, right? I can maybe understand Tosin, maybe in the sense that you were expecting Tosin to be somewhat good enough to at least be a backup, right? So I hear that one. Even at Champunk, I hear the Disasi one doesn't make sense to me because you saw the way that he played last season. And I get your point that you're saying now he's playing a bit more slower. He might be playing a back three. But the problems become, I think, the way that Maresca has played him as a right back is obviously incorrect. But secondly, when he has also played in the back four role with Maresca, when he's played as an actual RCB centre back for him in the Conference League, for example, right? He's looked the same. Right, and I think
I disagree with that. I think you're being
when
harsh.
he's played in the Conference League, he's not played that well. What are we discussing in the Conference League?
As a centre back, I think he's been just fine.
Nah, in the Conference
League,
bro,
he's not been good.
No. In the Conference,
he's been good on corners. He's been good on corners. I'll give him that.
But again, we know that because again, like respectfully, because we know again, Disasi is a box defender, bro. That's what he is.
Yes.
Again, he's someone that defends the 18-yard box. He's not someone that can play the way we play, right? And I remember that there was this thing that's going around, right, about what Paul, was it Lawrence Stewart showed Paul Stanley to sign Disasi, and was all this thing about him doing passion.
Oh my god, the passion merchant!
So I'm literally the athletic Marshall as well. Like this is an actual athletic.
Did you see this, Marshall?
Yeah, it's an actual athletic quote which came out when he signed Disasi at the time, right? And so if we're signing guys because of that, then I don't know what to tell you, bro. You know,
but I also think because he was captain, right? So I think that's what they also signed him, because they're like passion / leadership role. Middle.
But again, this is something I don't know if I said.
But not ability though.
But let me finish because let me finish this because this is my issue is I think at times we misconstrue passion for being able, meaning for talent. What I mean by that is that it's not showing passion outwardly and stuff like that does not mean that you have the talent. That's all I'm just gonna say. You know what I mean? Sometimes, bro, passion can be shown by playing your game. Passion can be shown by doing your own job, bro, and making sure you're dedicated to your job. That's passion. Passion does not mean, come on, lads, I just broke the header. You know, even that's not the only football.
You remember last season when Disasi made a mistake and then he made the save on the, and then he celebrated like it was a goal when he was the one who made the mistake, bro. Like, come on, what are we doing here, bro?
I get that, but one thing I want to just. I feel like we're going back to this thing like we're focusing too much on the now versus like the context of when we acquired him, because Oliver did point out like why we signed him. Like there was context to it. Fofana got the freak injury and then Chalobah fell as well, right? So I know there was interest and links to him prior, which could have been lazy journalism because of the Monaco links with was it Win Stanley that came from Monaco, or was it Lawrence Stewart that came from Monaco? Stewart. Okay, so with Stewart coming from Monaco, right? And when we look back at it too, when we look at the profile of what Disasi was at Monaco versus what he is now, they're two different players. You look if you were to look at the profiles in both and not say Disasi at the top of that profile, you would think they're two different players because of just the way he played at Monaco versus the way he's playing here and being used here at Chelsea. I just think in terms of also, let me read this super chat real quick. Thank you, TM127, for the $10 super chat. Also, I don't expect us to sign another CB, and that briefing that we are still looking at CBs is just nonsense. If we only do this for the January transfer, I don't care what position we end up, sack the SDs. I mean, fair enough. That's your opinion. I get where you're coming from. But in terms of, the whole Chalobah thing and all this happening, it does look bad. They just have to admit that when they take an L, just hold it. I think a lot of the fan base will respect you a lot more for just holding the fact that you fucked up and whatever. Just get us a better center back now. Actually go out and improve on what we have. And yeah, sell Disasi. I think I do still hold Ahmed to the fact that I said before. It's not a fact, but the opinion I had before that I think the sporting directors were like, Maresca can improve Disasi. Like, we did have Rudiger at this club at one point where we were all like, bro, this guy's going to go in January. Tuchel comes in and revolutionizes the player and puts him in a system that benefits him. I think you're right when it comes to saying with Disasi, obviously this system doesn't benefit him. He would probably benefit from a different system, maybe a low block one. I don't know. I think this is another one where they just relied too much on Maresca.
Listen, I get the context you were given, but I think that's fair enough. But I still think, even if the context you gave, doing what they were showing was still not a great look. That's the point I'm trying to come back.
I agree with Oliver when he said about the Fofana thing. Planning around Fofana being fit is dumb.
But I think for me, again, with Disasi, the reality of Disasi, right, is that you need to get your money back on Disasi as well, right? That's something that we also...
There was a pricey little transfer, I'm not going to lie.
Remember, you got him for something like 40 million, so... And I think the club are banking on being able to sell Chalobah and get a good amount of money off of him for pure profit, such that if the Disasi doesn't work out, the loss is not going to really hurt you because you've sold Chalobah already. It kind of balances it out, you know what I mean, with the amount of money you may lose on like a guy like a Disasi, regardless of the end of the day. But again, we come back to like obviously discussion we just had previously about the sporting directors, and you're talking about end of season review stuff. But this is I think shows to me these guys aren't necessarily sporting directors. I think RSM is correct in that aspect that these guys really aren't sporting directors. They're really just head scouts. I think they're heads. I think the better term to use is that these guys are really head scouts, bro. That's what they really are. The guys that you got on top of us are really just head scouts, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Guys that can identify that. I think RSM is actually a bit more bang on the mind there. But I think for me, the problem you're gonna have again, it comes back to for me is that people, when they get demoted from somewhere which is really high to somewhere low, is very rare they accept that. That's the worry I would have. Like, I don't know about you, RSM, because I don't see them accepting, I'm going to go from sporting director to head scout. I don't know, because like a lot of people have hunger, people have desire, right? And when you do that to someone, when they were in a bigger position than they were previously, that is the worry I have, that they wouldn't accept that either.
For me personally, I'm going to be honest, I think we were doing really, really well, right? Going into December, January. I think because everything fell apart in December and a lot of the holes that we have in the squad became apparent then, brother, I'm telling you, I'm becoming more and more certain that they had no plan for this window to do basically anything at all. I'm being serious.
You think they were like ratting their laurels kind of thing? Like,
I think,
hey, this is going to work out.
I mean, that's just because even before the bad run of form, there was nothing even like, Chelsea might have, an active window, etc. Nothing, not even like the PR, nothing. And then even as the bad run of form continued and we approached January, still nothing. We're mid-January and we're just now getting this news. Bro, they had no plan. There was nothing. There was no plan to do anything this window because everything was going so well. They're like, why try to add anything? Why need to do anything? We'll wait until the summer. Now they've been put in this position where you can even see Maresca saying, hey, these past 4 or 5 games we would have won if we were more clinical up front. He's not like he can't say it any much more clearly without going out and saying it, and he's not going to do that because that's not very classy, but he's doing the most he can to try to say that in the press conference that he needs more options at the striker position at 9. they were not going to do anything for that. And when it comes to the center back situation, they were also going to, it's very, very obvious as well. They were planning around Fofana staying fit, and I think Tosin being better than he really is.
Exactly.
Because this Josh thing, they stumbled into it. They got bailed out by Cobham producing once again another good defender. Because that's what it is. I agree. Bro, that's what it is. They got bailed out.
In terms of like, you know, the striker situation that you said, I disagree with that actually. I think they were planning to get a good striker in. They were planning to get Osimhen, but this is something that, Ahmed, you know, I've criticized the negotiation tactics when it comes to the sporting directors very, very heavily.
Oh, I'm speaking
These
about
guys
this window.
cannot get... Well, yeah, I just mean in general, right? Like these guys, when it comes to getting deals done, they take too long and they don't get the ideal price point that we've wanted. We've paid overs for Caicedo. I'm not complaining about it. We paid overs on Enzo. Not complaining about that either way. And they were just about ready to pay overs on Osimhen. And unfortunately, things collapsed at the very last minute. He ended up not going to either club and then going to Turkey, right? But we were trying to get a striker. So I do want to give a little bit more like grace than, you know, criticism on that front. But I agree with you in the terms that like, I think they were blindsided by the fact that things were looking pretty good and things looked like they were actually working out. I think for them, they were more focused on, okay, we have the spine. Let's focus on the business as usual aspect. Let's keep bringing on youth and kind of introduce them little by little. But now they're kind of at that point where I'm like, oh shit, we might have to get like #1 choice targets now because maybe Neto wasn't enough. Maybe we need another one in the market, you know, because they did go for #1 choice targets. Neto was one of them. Tosin, I think, potentially was one of them, but it didn't work out the way they planned. So I think to an extent, you're right. They didn't have a plan B because they were so reliant on plan A. Ahmed, you look like you were going to say something.
No, I was just going to say, because RSM's work, because remember, the whole talk going into, I think it was like mid-December was, Chelsea are just going to be looking for opportunistic signings in the January transfer window. And even now, what are we doing? We're just looking at opportunistic signings. Matthias still technically is an opportunistic signing because we're trying to get Nkunku off. We're trying to bring in a Matthias Tell. Another guy that we just spoke about, Ademi. Loan deal, opportunistic signing. We're trying to ship off. They want Vega. They want Chukwemeka as well. That we're trying to get deals done for them on their side too. So right now, a lot of the deals we're seeing are just opportunistic signings. Plus Chalobah, who's an easy guy to bring back because he's already a known quantity for you as well.
Yeah, I agree. It's a lot of opportunistic, and it goes back to what RSM was saying, right? Like, there wasn't a plan B. You were just gonna ride this out, and if there was some really good signings there that you think could bolster the club and you could make a good profit off of if you ended up flipping on it, like a Jadon Sancho, right? Like, let's be honest. If we buy Jadon Sancho, if he continues on in the way he's playing where he's been good, right? Like, the performances aren't there, but Jadon Sancho has been good overall. Then you eventually flip him for 60 or 45 mil. I don't know. You name the price, but he's a lot cheaper than, you know, how United ended up buying him.